Welcome to another workshop video from Touro University. We are excited to cover today's workshop that's going to cover the roles and responsibilities in an AI project team. Please welcome Ben Ettlinger, who will be hosting today's workshop video.
Okay, tonight's topic is roles and responsibilities in an AI project team. So, what I would like to cover tonight, the agenda is we're going to present some AI stats, which will provide a foundation for the topic. We will discuss in great detail the roles and responsibilities. And if we have time at the end, I want to talk about what has changed since I presented last year. There have been some dramatic change in the world of AI and AI projects, and then we'll leave some room for questions. When I started out in technology and IT, maybe 40 years ago, I was one day walking to the CCNY, the grad school, and I had my box of punch cards, which we used to use to create computer programs. And I walked into a Dwayne Reed and knocked it against a display, and the card box opened up and spilled out all over the floor. Now it took me hours and hours to put that box of program cards back together again. And nowadays, in the world of AI, you can create with Vibe code. You can create the code in minutes, and that's how far we progressed. And the pace of progression has been tremendous. And even right now in an AI world, things change even but between the time that I started presenting and the time I'll finish presenting, there may be great changes. So we're going to talk about that. And I want to talk now a little bit about stats. Now, why stats? Because when you see the stats and I present the stats, you'll see why I think the topic of roles and responsibilities is really important. First of all, uh, as far as daily interactions are concerned, over half of Americans, that means 55%, use or encounter AI regularly. Now, with about 20% reporting daily or more often interaction with AI. In the workplace, while only about 9% to 10% of US workers are using AI tools, that number rises in certain sectors. For example, obviously in IT, in marketing, in statistics and accounting, it becomes much more. And those the numbers that the Pew report reports is about 40% daily in certain industries. Web browsing, now approximately 7%, again, this is from the Pew report, most recent Pew report, approximately 7% of all web pages visited by users contain at least one AI related term, and 93% of users visit at least one such page a month. Now, high volume usage, some users, especially those that are tech focused, interact with AI maybe sometimes 10 times a day, sometimes as often as every 90 seconds. And corporate, again, the Pew report says that a high profile of tech earnings calls often mention 50 to 60 times per session talk about AI. Now, how often do people talk about AI? AI is referenced billions of times. This is from information we got from Copilot. Now, we don't know how often people use AI tools daily, but it's a lot. Some key points. ChatGPT alone processes over 2.5 billion prompts per day. 1.1 billion people worldwide are using AI tools as of 2026. 34% of adults globally use generative AI weekly. That's a lot. That's really a lot. Now, here is why I want to talk about roles and responsibilities. In 2024, RAND report found that 80% of AI projects fail. RAND linked the figure essentially with the same number in 2025, and the best 2025 data shows that AI project the failure rate of about 8.3%. That's a lot, and a lot of failure and a lot of issues. Staffing related issues. Here's the main point. Staffing related issues accounted for about 35 to 45% of failed initiatives. Now, improper staffing is a major quantifiable, quantifiable contributor to AI project failure. It's one of the three root causes, along with data quality and lack of production grade infrastructure, that causes that 80% of project failure. Now, again, it shows up consistently in RAND, Gartner, MIT Sloan, and McKinsey data, 2024 and 25 data, that improper staffing is one of the major documented drivers of AI project failure. And that's why tonight I want to talk about roles and responsibilities. Now, enterprises poured $684 billion into AI by the end of 2025. And then more than 547 billion of that have produced no measurable results. Okay, so improper staffing is a major quantifiable contributor to AI project failure. It's, again, one of the top three root causes, alongside data quality, lack of production grade infrastructure. Now, that's like a stampede. We're stampeding into the world of AI, spending billions and billions of dollars, and most of those dollars are going over the cliff. And a good percentage of that is because AI teams are not properly staffed. The roles and responsibilities have not been properly defined, and that's why I want to talk about tonight about AI team roles and responsibilities. Misaligned staffing, wrong roles, wrong structure. There's a failure mode. We're in failure mode if it's 80%. Some examples of why it's happening: data scientists are trying to do data engineering, IT teams owning AI governance without AI expertise, business units driving use cases without technical feasibility checks, no product owner to translate business value into measurable outcomes, and the positions and roles are not properly staffed. So, for a successful AI project team, you obviously need a project, and we'll talk about all these this evening. You need an AI project manager. You need an AI architect. You need a business analyst. You need a data engineer. At least these are the roles. Uh, One person could wear multiple hats, but especially in a large project, each of these positions have to be filled. You need a data engineer. Of course, need a data scientist, a data architect, a RAG engineer, which we'll talk about, a business intelligence developer, and an AI strategy consultant. And to add to that, we'll talk about the end, a role of testing. Ancillary roles that may not necessarily have to be filled, but should be addressed by somebody on the team. Again, an application developer, business analyst, tech writer, and an enterprise architect. On a large team, all of these roles have to be filled in order to be successful. Now, what is the role of AI project manager? What does he do? He's a leader who oversees a team of data scientists and the entire team of data engineers, the entire list of people that were mentioned, the roles that were mentioned in the previous slide. What does he do? He guides the team to work on the most impactful projects, requires technical and business skills. He must have the ability to communicate effectively with different stakeholders. He not just technical people, but business people business people as well. One of my favorite IT stories is I presented and started talking, giving my presentation, and the controller of the company who was a cigar chomping executive, be, between the cigar between his teeth, told me, dummy it down. So the person, the age of AI project manager, has to be able to talk tech to his tech people, but he also has to be able to dummy it down and communicate with with the important stakeholders that he's dealing with. He must keep the stakeholders well informed, and he must be able to control expectations. If the project is slowing down, he's got to make sure that the stakeholders are aware of it. So all of these tasks, all of these roles must be filled by the AI project manager. What is he responsible for? He has to define what's success, what is defined as success. He has to set goals for the team. He has to create processes and standards for data analysis and modeling. He has to do hiring, mentoring, develop data scientists and other members of the team, make sure that the members of the team are growing as they're working. He has to evaluate and prioritize projects and requests, especially in an ongoing project. If he's involved in an ongoing project, he's got to be able to define what's really important and what's not important. If there are additional requests, he has to say that's really not feasible. It's going to delay us in the project. All that he has to be able to do. And again, communicate data insights and recommendations to senior management, stakeholders, and other teams. And especially if you're working with a program management office, he's also has to be able to communicate the progress of the project to the program management, the director, or whoever's in charge of the PM or the program management office. The next role is an AI architect. It's what's AI architecture? It's a discipline that designs, governs, and manages AI architecture. So we'll talk about in a second. Though that's could be the most complex part of an AI project. What does he do? He owns the end-to-end AI architecture. I'll show an example in a couple of minutes. Data pipelines, model orchestration. He has to the retrieval layers, meaning the safety layers, how you're going to retrieve your data, strategic planning for AI adoption and components selection. There's been a change, probably since last year and certainly previous years, in how to develop an AI project. No longer do projects have to necessarily develop their own AI code. But right now, it's been componentized. They can go out, and you can buy components from Microsoft or any other AI developers, and put them together and into your project, which would save a lot of AI coding. And it's componentization of AI. So the AI architect has to be familiar with that and know which components are useful or which components can possibly be used in the project or series of projects that he's the architect for. Um, he has to ensure that there's scalability, proper security, as we all know, really important since we've just recovered from the Canvas debacle last week, and governance of AI workloads. He has to be able to coordinate the data scientists. He has to coordinate the machine learning engineers, platform teams, and business stakeholders, and make sure that they all have the ability to talk to each other. And he has to be able to evaluate and optimize the system performance. You don't want to develop a system that has very poor performance, and he will be responsible to make sure that if the system that you're developing is not optimized, it's his responsibility to make sure that it does get optimized. Now, what's AI architecture? This is one way of looking at it. There are multiple layers in an AI project. You have the physical layer on the bottom, you have the machine learning and governance and API integration, you have processing and logical execution, retrieval, and a reasoning engine to be able to process the queries, model training. Behind any AI project is the model, is the data model, is the LLM, the large language model, where all the data is kept, and it has to be trained and optimized to be able to handle the type of queries that are going to be made in that AI application. Then there's a representation layer. How is the data going to be represented? Is it going to be in a dashboard form, whatever the form is? And then on top is obviously is the AI interface, the application layer, which is what the users are going to see. So all of these multiple layers have to be architected and put into place, and have to make sure that they each of the layers can talk to each other. This is a sample of a AI system architecture in the real. In the bottom, you see you have the infrastructure layer, and then the data layer, and the model layer, and the application service layer. I'm not going to go into the details of this because the main purpose of this presentation tonight is to talk about the roles and responsibility. But this is the responsibility of the AI architect to make sure that all these pieces are put together, functioning properly, that everybody else can do their work, and that at the end, that the code and everything else that's developed will work. Now, the next thing is a business analyst. The business analyst is like the linchpin. He is the one who has to be able to talk technical intricacies of AI, the technical intricacies of everything that's being worked on by the project team, and he has to be able to talk to the business side. And he's like the liaison between the business and and the technical area. So it's a skill, it's a unique skill. Person has to doesn't have to do the coding, yes, it doesn't have to do the architecture, but he has to have the ability to talk to the to people who are doing the coding, or people who are doing the architecture, or people who are doing the governance, and he has to be able to talk to the business side to make sure that a clear understanding of what they want is transmitted over to the project team. It's a unique skill. He has to understand complex technical jargon, and he has to be able to translate the business jargon into and the business needs into that technical jargon that the technical side of the house has to understand. It's a great position to be in. You're both on the business side and the technical side, and it's a good position that to be in. If you want to advance, you have the choice to advance either in the business side or on the technical side, whatever you whichever you want to do. But it's a great experience. You get to talk tech, and you get to talk business on a project. The business analyst. Now, why do you need a business analyst? Uh, AI agents can augment business intuition, but they cannot replace it. At least I can't see the AI agents are going to take over the world. You have to have business intuition. I don't think AI agents will be able to do that, at least certainly not now. So that's why, and it's not going to happen for a long time. So that's why you need the business analyst to be able to be that liaison between the business and the technical team. Now, responsibilities. He focuses on understanding how AI technologies can support organizational goals and enhance the decision making. As we said, he bridges that gap between the technical teams and the business leader, or actually, in many cases, between the technical teams and some of the people who are doing the front end work on the business side. He has to ensure that the AI initiatives are aligned with the company's objectives for and make sure very often you'll have the technical people going off in the wild yonder doing the technical stuff they want to do, but it's not in line with what the business or what the project users really want. So therefore, he has to make sure that again the technical side and the business side stay in sync, and he drives innovation and efficiency in the organization. The next thing we have is the data engineer. To me, the data engineer is the most challenging position. It's a discipline focused on design and construction of systems. He's got to be a real hardcore techie in order to do this. He has to be familiar with systems and infrastructure and all the infrastructure that's involved in collecting the data, storing the data, analyzing the data, and operationalizing the data. He's like the liaison on the technical side between the data scientists and the data engineers and the technical people and all the people that are responsible for the data and the pipelines and the interfaces between the various tools and applications. Um, the data engineer, creates and manages large data sets. He develops data processing systems. He's involved in converting data into usable formats. He's improving reliability. He works on improving reliability, efficiency, and quality. He's involved in collecting the data from the various sources and making sure that all the data is in sync, not that you have code numbers coming with 4 digits or code numbers coming with 6 digits, and they have to be able to talk. So he's got to be able to put the data that's coming in from various sources to be aligned. In my own experience, I give you an example. We were working on an application that was collecting data, reporting on the EV charging machines across the state of New York. Lo and behold, the different vendors of charging machines had for what they call was similar data, but different data types. And different data types, different data lengths. So the data engineer has to be able to bring them all together and bring the data together in the models that he creates have to have the same data types. If there one figure comes in with 6 digits and one figure comes in with only 4 digits, he has to expand that 4 digit data into 6 digit data. I'm just throwing out examples, but that's part of the workload of the data engineer. Again, his diagram, the data engineer takes it from the various sources, social media or third-party data or a CRM. This is a CRM example. Bring them all together. Probably has to use an ETL tool to clean up the data. Then it goes into the data storage, and then the data is then aggregated in various forms, aggregated to the best way that it can be consumed by the users on the front end, either reports or applications, whatever it is. So that's just a high level data flow of what the data engineer has to do, the various steps that he's involved in. Of course, technically, it's much more complex. Again, um, to get down into this central layer over here on the previous slide, where the blue and the ETL tool and the aggregation, that what's done, he has to take the raw data that's collected from the various sources. He has to bring it into what's called the curation zone. He has to curate the data. That means make sure all the data is in the proper format and all the data is similar, at least what's supposed to be similar matches. Then those various pieces of data from the various sources, in the example I gave from the various EV charging machines, make sure that they're all aggregated. And then from that, then they're sent out to the reporting, the databases for the various reporting, and from the aggregation zone into the reporting area. Then the reporting databases, it's prepared that it makes easy querying. That's a part of the data modeling. And on the far end, you have the tableaus and the clicks and the Power BIs that are going to actually report on the data. So that's all part of the data engineer's responsibility. Okay, again, this is just another example of what the data engineer has to be responsible for, bringing in the data, intelligent from intelligent gadgets to bring in all the data into the large language models, and then on the right side, create, if necessary, create metadata and all this. I don't want to go again. We're only here to talk about the roles and responsibilities. We're not talking about the data engineering role, but it's complex and in my mind, probably one of the most exciting roles in a AI project. And this is a typical diagram. Uh, how on the left side you see a traditional data management. On the right side you see AI data, AI ready data, and the kind of the differences between. Again, I don't want to go into the details, but you see the complexity of preparing the data, preparing the large language models, and that's where many projects fail. And this is why 80% of the projects fail, because they're not doing this kind of detailed work and making sure that the data is properly prepared. Again, it's an important role that has to be properly filled. Again, the data engineer collects the data, moves the data in this triangle, explores and transforms the data, aggregates the data, does data learning, helps optimize the data, and prepare it for algorithms and so forth, or for AI deep learning. So the bottom layer is the most important. The bottom two colored parts of this triangle, the most important part that the data engineer is involved in. Again, the skills and tool sets for that a data engineer uses has to know engineering, software engineering, has to have a software engineering background, has to understand programming because he's working with the people who are doing the programming, either Python or Java, whatever. He has to be familiar, has to have some database or data warehouse experience. Um, he has to understand the data. If he doesn't understand the data, he can't do any of this work. He has to be familiar with ETL and ELT tools, with BI tools. He doesn't have to work with them, but be familiar with them to understand his customers on the back end and on the front end, his technical customers, what they need, and and be able to serve and be able to do the data engineering properly. He has to have some proper soft skills like creativity and problem solving. Again, that's why I think it is probably the most challenging position in an AI project. Now, data analytics and data science is about using that foundation that the data engineer creates. It's the data scientists focus on exploring the data. He helps build the dashboards, maybe not necessarily the dashboards directly, but he has to supply the data for the dashboards or whatever what you need the data for. He has to identify trends and be able to understand the business, because the data, the data science, the algorithms that he's working on has to support business decisions. So he has to have some understanding of the business and what the algorithms that he's building are supposed to support. As I mentioned, now when there's more for their components, the data scientist may not have to write all the algorithms, but he has to know what algorithms are necessary and potentially what components that would have to be bought to be included in the project in the application. Just a quick view of what the data scientist has to know. These are just a list of very common algorithms that have to be developed: supervised learning algorithms, unsupervised learning algorithms, k-means clustering, support vector machines. So the data scientist has to know all this. One of my favorites, random forest algorithm. It's a method for combining multiple decision trees for classification or for regression. Again, this is not a technical AI course, but this is what the data scientist has to be or should be familiar with. And here, the neural networks, algorithms, many different kinds of algorithms that the data scientist has to be familiar with. Um, Computer vision. If it's a computer vision project, obviously he has to be familiar with that. He has to be able to optimize algorithms, even if you're buying components. He has to make sure that those components you're buying are servicing the needs of the application properly. You're buying an off-the-shelf component. It may not directly serve what the application needs. So he may have to fine-tune that component or work with the component developer to be able to make changes to the algorithms to be able to service the application that's going to be using the AI. Now, then data architects. So it's a more strategic role that appears in many large organizations. It involves designing, overseeing the data infrastructure. He probably gets also involved in the development of the the LLM, the large language model, to make sure that it can provide the application and the users what they need. Responsibilities for the data architects. Um, he's responsible for working with business requirements and translating them into the data infrastructure. Um, he has to set a data governance policy, data ops strategies, and ensure data security and compliance with regulations. And that's very important in here. If HIPAA is involved, he's got to make sure that HIPAA rules are properly followed. Business intelligence developer. We used to call them report writer developers. Now they're business intelligence. He works on the front end. It's a role that exists within a BI project. If the project involves BI, the ability to develop the front end. These are the experts in Tableau, the experts in Power BI and Tableau, and at least I caught a few of the sessions in the Tableau conference last week. It's very powerful, and the BI developer has to be familiar with. I'll give you just one example. Tableau's now developed the ability to actually dial in a number and ask Tableau for a voice recording of some of the numbers that you would normally see on the dashboard. Let's say it's a salesman on the road and he doesn't have his laptop with him. He can call in and say, what are the latest numbers for the sales in the Southwest region? And Tableau will then give a voice message back to be what the data is. So that's what the business intelligence developer has to work with and be able to develop for the user communities to make sure that all their needs are satisfied. A data engineer and ETL developer work with the inner infrastructure. The BI developer oversees defining the UX, define reporting standards. He has to be able to develop the tools and be able to developing reporting tools means developing the Power BI or Click or whatever you're using, and be able to make sure that those tools are available to the users. Then there's governance and risk. Um, Governance maintains policies, processes, standards, and oversight. And you may or may not need this in a project team, but it's a good thing to be aware of. And then certainly the project manager should be in contact with risk management, the people who are charged for risk, to know what he's developing to assess and mitigate and make sure that it's ethical. The project maintains its ethical guidelines and any societal risks that he may not be familiar with. But it's a good idea for the project manager to be in contact with risk management to make sure that you don't fail on any of these important issues. And obviously to be in contact with cybersecurity as well. To make sure there are no holes and make sure you're protected against the latest attacks. Now, this is a new engineering position. The RAG engineer, his responsibility is to make sure that the large language model has the right information at the right time so it can answer accurately, correctly, safely, and with proper citations if it's necessary. So the RAG engineer and the data engineer could be the same person, different roles, but the same person could potentially fill that role. And RAG stands for retrieval augmented generation. It's a pattern where an LLM, a large language model, is fed. There may be additional information fed into the large language model, and maybe domain specific, uh, and it's potentially not may not even be in the LLM beforehand. It may actually have to be fed into the LLM at the time that the query is posed, the query is asked to the application. So and so rather than relying solely on pre-training, the model grounds its answers on your data, your policies, your product docs, and so on and so forth, tickets, telemetry, transaction history. So all that may have to be gathered on the fly when you when you actually query put in your query. So the data, the RAG engineer is responsible. They may have to go out onto the into the internet to collect some data and then combine it with data that's stored in your large language model. Um, he also reduces hallucinations. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm not talking about LSD. Um, he has to make sure that it's factually accurate. He has to make sure that LLM systems um, are more explainable and auditable. And this is the RAG engineer is very helpful for banking, telecoms, and critical infrastructure. Okay. Now, two terms that I may have mentioned. What's a vector? A vector is a numerical representation of an object, and that allows machine learning algorithms to process the data, complex data. Now, what is hallucination? That's a new term that's entered to IT. Artificial intelligence systems generate output that are nonsensical or inaccurate. So it's responsible for the RAG engineer to make sure that that doesn't happen. And recently, if you're not following, by the way, if you're not following Bernard Marr, he's a futurist. I think he has right now 2 million followers. You can access him through the Forbes website or LinkedIn. He has a great article on hallucination, and it's it can happen like AI engines like Copilot will learns very quickly about you from your queries and will sometimes return information that you know you're going to want to hear, but may not be accurate. So I highly recommend going to LinkedIn and looking up Bernard Marr. That's Bernard M. Last name is Marr, and there's a great article on hallucination. And the RAG engineer is responsible to try to reduce that. He owns a vector store and design operation. We talked about vectors a minute ago. He builds evaluation and observability for LLM answers, and that's how he reduces the hallucination. And he works with domain experts and risks to learn about that and discover if there's hallucination out there. And he collaborates with the machine learning ops and the platform teams. Again, he designs the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation RAG systems, and works with the pipelines. And here's a quick graph of the responsibility, the different engineers that could be involved: the RAG engineer, prompt engineer, the LLM ops engineer, the data engineer. These are roles. One person could be responsible for this, but these are all the roles that have to be potentially filled in an AI project. And finally, a project manager is the strategic owner. We talked about RAG engineers. We talked about LLM. The LLM ops handles safety monitoring and lifecycle management. We talked about UX. And I just want to talk about how do you fill all these roles? It's hard. Data scientists, I know when I was leading an AI team, a data science wouldn't stay more than 6 months, a year, because the salary scale is growing and growing and growing, and they get pulled away to a higher paying job. So one of the best ways is to upskill. Upskilling means taking your best people and upskill them. And here's an example. Take your data engineer, develop him into a data analyst, and from there, develop that, train him in data science skills. And usually, those are the people who stay longer The people who are part of your company take the people, the number crunchers, and develop them into potentially develop them directly into data scientists. Upskilling is a very powerful tool that a company can use to fill many of those positions. Okay. Um, Now, one important role is um, you have to have an analytic strategy. Without it, failure is almost guaranteed. Just to say I'm doing AI because everybody else is doing is another reason for the 80% failure rate. You need a plan. You have to plan things out. You need a strategy. Now, you can hire your own strategist. You can work with Gartner or Forrester or any of these companies that are offering support to help you plan out Deloitte and any of these companies, the consulting firms, to work and to figure out a strategy for you to follow what projects to develop in your environment. And so you need an AI strategy consultant above that. So this is really outside the realm of an AI project, but there's got to be somebody up there that's developing and telling you what projects you should be doing. And these are his responsibilities. He has to have he has to live the experience. He has to have tacit knowledge, social context, and all these some appetite for risk, and he has to understand what not to do. Now, he has to track AI trends. He has to evaluate emerging tools. And below, this just came out. This is Gartner's uh, AI technology roadmap for 2026, and it has all the emerging technologies. So your strategist has to know which emerging technologies are the ones that have to be followed. Okay, and finally, um, vibe. That's a vibe. Usually, it used to mean I have good vibes with somebody else. Vibe coding is that coding that's developed by AI and brings us back to the beginning of the presentation. Vibe coding is dangerous because it's developed by AI. It may work for prototypes, but it's not going to work for applications that are on the front end that are really working and serving the business. It's prone to mistakes, prone to security issues. So vibe coding, while it may be good for developing a prototype, it doesn't really work well for developing an application. And finally, the role and responsibility uh, that's really important, and it's the role and responsibility of everybody on the team. Some teams have separate testing teams to test projects, is to test and to test and to test and to test. My favorite example of an application where there was a major failure is somebody. I knew somebody who worked on an application he developed for the Port Authority, and it was supposed to control all the traffic lights at JFK. The application went live, and all of a sudden, right off the bat, every traffic light at JFK went red. So forget about air traffic controlling, traffic controlling, and it took quite a while to get out and then back everything out. So that you don't want that to happen, whatever application you're putting in. So you've got to test, and retest. So therefore, I want to thank everybody for joining and wish everybody well. And please, um, you can email me at BETTLING, that's BETTLING at toro.edu. With that, I want to wish everybody good night, and thank you for joining.